Aegon the Conqueror changed the course of an entire continent through his conquest of Westeros. Through fire and blood, he forged together a mighty kingdom that his descendants enjoyed dominion over for a time. And hate or love the Targaryens, Aegon's uniting of most of Westeros cut down on a lot of bloodshed and the constant fighting. But it's important to remember that he didn't do it alone. This video is about one of Aegon's sister wives, Visenya Targaryen, a woman that not only helped Aegon conquer almost all the Seven Kingdoms, but helped shape its future kings, maybe through a little poison. Visenya Targaryen, born in 28 or 29 BC, was the firstborn child of Aerion Targaryen and Lady Vallana of House Velaryon, who was half Targaryen on her mother's side. She came into this world on her family's home of Dragonstone, where the Targaryens had fled to after Daenys the Dreamer, around a century prior, had seen the doom of Valyria. Good thing, as if Daenys' vision had not pushed her father to flee Valyria, the Targaryens would have been dead like all the other dragon lords. Thanks to Visenya's family attempting to keep the bloodlines pure, and by extension keeping the traditional Valyrian features, by lots of intermarrying within the family, Visenya was born looking like a traditional Valyrian and Targaryen, with purple eyes and silver gold hair. She would grow to be beautiful, but in a harsh sort of way that matched her unforgiving, stern, and serious nature. But Visenya wouldn't grow up alone on Dragonstone. Her parents welcomed a baby boy named Aegon 2 years later in 27 BC, and a girl named Rhaenys in 25 or 26 BC, when Visenya was around 3 or 4 years old. While Aegon was a bit like Visenya, stern yet charismatic, Rhaenys was very much her sister Visenya's opposite. For every ounce of sternness in Visenya, Rhaenys matched in playfulness and impulsiveness. Given their differences, they may not have been the best childhood friends, but since we don't know how they were as children and if they got along, it would be a guess at best. Visenya may have also had a bastard half-brother named Orys Baratheon, but there isn't much on what she thought of him. She at least liked him enough to keep him around later in life. What we do know about Visenya's childhood is very little, though, in general. Something gave her an interest in poisons and dark arts as a child that perhaps led to rumors that in adulthood, she dabbled in dark sorceries and poisons. We also know at some point she became a dragon rider when her dragon, Vhagar, hatched on Dragonstone and she bonded with it. A dragon with breath so hot, it was said it could melt a knight's armor and cook the man inside. Though she wouldn't ride as much as her sister Rhaenys rode her own dragon, reliable reports state that Visenya visited Westeros in her youth on Dragonback. Supposedly she, with her brother Aegon, visited the Citadel in Old Town and went to the Arbor as guests of Lord Redwine. Besides a dragon rider, as a child, Visenya trained alongside her brother and became just as much of a warrior as he did. To go with her warrior skills, she wielded a Valyrian steel longsword named Dark Sister. The sword would become a very important Targaryen family heirloom, and actually saved her brother's life in the future, which I'll talk about in part 2. The sword was made with a slender blade to fit her smaller woman hands, though non-women in the future would wield the sword. Visenya became incredibly skilled with Dark Sister, but just because she was a warrior and skilled swordsman, that doesn't mean she was only comfortable in ringmail, as we know some other warrior ladies were, such as Brienne of Tarth. No, Visenya had the beauty and grace to be not only comfortable in ringmail, but also in silk. It is also likely that from a young age she was betrothed to her brother Aegon, as it was a long-standing custom among dragon lords of Valyria to marry siblings to keep the bloodline pure, as I mentioned before, and as we can see with the Targaryens' very interesting family tree that is missing a lot of branches, so it wasn't surprising when Visenya married her younger brother Aegon. It was tradition that he would wed his eldest sister. What was a tad surprising, but not unheard of, was when Aegon also married his younger sister Rhaenys. The belief was that Aegon married Visenya out of duty and tradition, and Rhaenys out of desire. Which is interesting given that no one would ever question Visenya's fidelity to Aegon. But with Rhaenys, there were some rumors. She really liked being surrounded by pretty men. Despite that, Aegon would spend 10 nights with Rhaenys for every one he spent with Visenya. So clearly he had a favorite wife, and it wasn't Visenya. How much did that bother her? Who can say? Besides George. However, Aegon would be thankful to have her by his side when he decided in 2 BC to conquer the 7 kingdoms, or as many as he could. After some disastrous marriage proposals that ended with Aegon offering up his best friend and maybe bastard brother Orys to Argilac the Storm King's daughter, Aegon called his banners to Dragonstone and took counsel with them and his sisters. The details of what Visenya may have added to this meeting isn't known, but it ended with Aegon sending ravens to the rulers of the 7 kingdoms that let them know he was going to be the only king in Westeros. Submit and keep your titles and lands, or die. After some replies he didn't like, Aegon, Visenya, and Rhaenys and fewer than 1,600 men landed on the mouth of the Blackwater Rush next to 3 hills. On the highest of the hills, Aegon had Aegon Fort made, and his sisters quickly went to work securing territories and victories for him. Which from here, I'll only talk about Visenya's part in the conquest, as the video is about her, but I will be adding in bits about her siblings if it helps with context of what she was doing. I have other videos on the entire conquest if it is something you're interested in. And really, the conquest in itself is a lot of fun. In a lot of people died sort of way, I guess. So shortly after landing in Westeros, Visenya headed to Stokeworth on her dragon to deal with them. They fought a bit, some bolts were fired at Visenya by crossbowmen, but when she released Vhagar's flames on the roofs of the castle keep, setting it on fire, they decided smartly to submit. She was incredibly smart in taking Duskendale next, and Visenya kept the town from being sacked so she could take its riches to greatly add to her and her siblings' wealth as they took on the rest of Westeros. After claiming these territories and her siblings adding to it with their own victories, Aegon officially had a battle standard created. A red 3-headed dragon breathing fire on a black field, which showed those of Westeros he was now one of them. The now Queen Visenya placed a Valyrian steel circlet studded with rubies on her brother Aegon's head, as her sister and Aegon's other wife, Queen Rhaenys, declared him Aegon, first of his name, King of all Westeros, and Shield of his people. Dragons roared, the lords and knights now serving Aegon cheered, but the small folk shouted the loudest of them all. Despite this happy coronation, there was still work to be done, and within days of the ceremony, Aegon's armies marched again. While her siblings attended to other problems and areas of Westeros, Visenya went with the Targaryen fleet controlled by Daemon Velaryon to attack Gulltown and the Vale. This attack didn't go too well for Visenya at first. The Arryn fleet, which had added a dozen Braavosi warships, met the Targaryen fleet in the waters off of Gulltown, killing Daemon and sinking a third of the Targaryen ships and capturing near as many. But they didn't have one important thing: a dragon. Visenya, riding Vhagar, descended on the Arryn fleet, setting their ships on fire. It became quickly apparent that they would be no match for Visenya on her dragon. This power move resulted in her moving through the area, accepting pledges of loyalty. She eventually ended up on Crackclaw Point, where there were many passionate pledges of loyalty to House Targaryen from the local lords, who probably didn't want the shit burned out of them. And I don't blame them. Imagine the Field of Fire 2.0 we saw in the show. Watching people being burned alive by dragons is terrifying. Through her siblings and her hard work, at this point the Riverlands and Stormlands were now under the control of the Targaryens. However, other areas such as the Westerlands, Reach, Dorne, the North, and the Vale were getting very concerned and putting plans into action to protect themselves against the invading Targaryens. The Reach under King Mern IX and the Westerlands under King Loren I Lannister joined forces to take on the Targaryens, believing they could hold them at bay with their combined forces. Together, they commanded one of the mightiest hosts Westeros had ever seen. An army of 55,000 men. Aegon, hearing of this alliance, moved quickly with his army, and at the Stony Sept, Visenya and Rhaenys joined him. Visenya with her siblings watched from the sky as Aegon's army crossed the Blackwater Rush and headed south to meet the two kings that had joined together to stop them. When the two armies met in the open plains south of the Blackwater, the two Westerosi kings were delighted. For every one of Aegon's men, they had 5. But these numbers don't mean much when you have 3 dragons watching the battle, ready to join in at any moment. The battle in itself was interesting, but it ended with Visenya, Aegon, and Rhaenys using their dragons to create a field of fire. See, what the 2 Westerosi kings did not notice was they were surrounded by dry, tall grass and wheat. Visenya and Rhaenys set fire upwind of their enemy and behind them. The dry grass quickly went up in flames, and smoke blew in the faces of their enemies, blinding them and terrifying their horses. Walls of fire rose up on all sides, and by the end of the battle, more than 4,000 men died in the flames, with tens of thousands suffering burns that scarred some of them for life. While it was a sound battle, during the fight, Visenya took an arrow to one shoulder, but quickly recovered. Her dragon took the opportunity to feed on the dead with the other 2 dragons while she healed. With the Westerlands now under his control, Aegon marched to the Reach, where the Tyrells, stewards of Highgarden, quickly pledged themselves to Aegon. They didn't even want to put up a fight. He would have continued south, but heard the North, led by King Torrhen Stark, were crossing the Neck and into the Riverlands to fight. This prompted Aegon to send word to his 2 sisters and all the lords and knights that now followed him to meet him to take on the Northern King. When King Stark reached the Trident, he saw not only Aegon's army, which was very big at this point, but Visenya and Rhaenys and Aegon on their dragons. Seeing the 3 Targaryens on their dragons and their now enormous hosts, he quickly bent the knee, not wanting a repeat of the Field of Fire. After securing the North, Aegon once again sent his sisters on other business. Visenya was sent to the Vale in a second attempt to conquer it for her brother. In the Vale, Queen Shara of the Vale, known as the Flower of the Mountain in her youth, served as a regent for her son Ronald. When her marriage proposal to Aegon wasn't accepted and she saw the devastation the Targaryens were bringing to the 7 Kingdoms, she decided it was best to hide in Eyrie and strengthen the defenses of Gulltown, fortified the Bloody Gate, and had tripled the size of the garrisons in Stone, Snow, and Sky, the castles that guarded the Eyrie. Visenya, though, she was a smart woman. The fortifications meant nothing to her, and she breezed past them, using her dragon to land in the Eyrie's inner courtyard. No sense fighting battles that didn't need to be fought. By the time Queen Shara knew what happened, it was too late. She rushed out to confront Visenya with a dozen guards behind her, but found her precious son Ronald was already in the hands of Visenya. Shara saw her son sitting on the Dragon Queen's knee, staring at her dragon in wonder. When he saw his mother, he asked if he could go flying with the lady. Shara was a smart woman as well. At this sight, and with her son's words, the 2 queens only smiled at each other, with no threats or angry words. Instead, they exchanged courtesies, and knowing that she was defeated, Shara had 3 crowns brought to Visenya: her own regent's crown, her son's small crown, and the falcon crown of Mountain and Vale that the Arryn kings had worn for thousands of years. She then gave them to Visenya along with the swords of her garrison. Afterwards, Visenya took the boy on her dragon to fly 3 times around the giant's lance. She had successfully secured the Vale of Arryn for her brother. Meanwhile, Aegon had had a second coronation where the High Septon himself anointed him in the 7 oils, placed a crown on his head, and declared him king. So Aegon, with the help of his sisters, had officially united the 7 kingdoms, most the 7 kingdoms, into one great realm. He then returned to where he had originally landed, later to be known as King's Landing, and raised up a new town, ruling from a great metal seat made from the twisted and broken blades of his foes. In part 2, I will talk about Visenya's role as one of the first queens of the 7 kingdoms, along with her sister Rhaenys, of course, the disastrous attempt to bring Dorne into their realm, how she shaped the early Targaryen rule, and how her actions and inability to see her son was a piece of shit made the realm bleed. Thanks for watching, please like, subscribe, and come back for more videos.